and unseen truth. Join Lynda Carmouche, your host, a licensed therapist, mental wellness strategist, and speaker, going beyond titles, addressing the emotional scars, hidden trauma, fears, and the silent battles many professionals face but rarely discuss. Come on in. The Elephant Room, where vulnerability meets strength. Hit subscribe and connect with hope, healing, and the courage to address the elephant in the room. Remember, the content here is for informational purposes only. Seek help from a qualified professional for mental health concerns, and discretion is advised for sensitive topics.
Talk to me. Talk to me. I think my mic was off for a minute there, but I think I'm good now. Drop something in the chat. Let me know what's going on with you. I don't see anything in the chat, which is making me feel like you all can't hear me. Can somebody drop something in the chat for me? Hold on one second. Okay, yes, I'm live. How y'all doing tonight? That ain't nothing but the enemy trying to get up in here. But guess what? You gonna get up out of here tonight. You gonna get up out of here. So tonight, y'all, I'm pumped. We are gonna be talking about healing hurts, breaking the cycle of brokenness. We going deep, y'all. I had a conversation with a young lady earlier today. Okay, somebody just sent me a message and said we can hear you. Thank you. Because I'm not seeing anything in the chat, and that makes me a little nervous. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I had a conversation with a beautiful soul today, and she shared something with me, and when she shared it, I knew I needed to share it with you. And I'm going to use it as our opening tonight before Nadia comes up. It says, healing is so hard because it's a constant battle between your inner child who's scared and just wants safety, your inner teenager who's angry and just wants justice, and your adult self who is tired and just wants peace. Be gentle with yourself. And the interesting thing is, tonight we're talking about breaking the cycle of brokenness. Sometimes our brokenness, it doesn't start in our adult years. Sometimes it starts when we're itty bitty babies. Sometimes it starts when we're little girls and little boys, and the people in our lives have become accustomed to whatever it is that is breaking us, and they don't know that what they're doing is hurting us. One of the things I find is we oftentimes don't want to talk about the brokenness that happened when we were little because we think it means the person or people we love are bad people. It doesn't mean they're bad, but sometimes I love you and you did the best you could, but it still caused me some pain. So tonight, we're going to welcome Nadia. Let me tell y'all a little bit about Nadia. Nadia, when you think you got a God girl who is in ministry and you think that's all they're doing, let me tell you, Nadia out here in these nursing streets, she has a master's of divinity. She has a podcast-ish Bible study. She's a mama of 2 beautiful children. And She's a life coach and an author. She has a book that's going to be coming out real soon. In the elephant room, y'all come on and help me to welcome Nadia Joseph Williams. Hey, Nadia.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm
Good
doing.
night.
So I don't know what's going on with our comments tonight. They are not showing up. So I'm going to try to see what's going on online while we're talking, and I hope I'm savvy enough to make it happen. But Nadia, we're going to jump right into it. I'm so grateful that you're here. In the elephant room, we like to talk about those things that we usually don't talk about. And the things we keep secret oftentimes are those things that's hurting us the most, because when we hide them, we don't deal with them. So I want you to tell me, as a nurse, a mama, a life coach, a minister, what's going on out there in those streets? Are you finding that people are hurting and there are cycles of brokenness?
Well, what I'm finding is that that's accurate. There are people who are hurting, but they're not really dealing with it. I would dare say that I don't think some people are aware of it. I think that we are so accustomed to like what has become comfort to us, like trauma. Trauma has a tendency to, as you know, Dr. Karen Leaf says in her book, like it has the ability to change your brain because of the neuroplasticity. And so when you're used to a traumatic experiences happening to you, it becomes natural to you. So you just expect it. You don't like it when it happens, but you're accustomed to it. So therefore, you just kind of go with it because that's norm for you. And so I think that because that because that is a norm to them, they don't see it as a problem unless somebody else points it out. And that's what I find happens with a lot of people. Somebody else has to let them know, oh, you're like, something's wrong. You need to look at that. And then that's kind of what happened to me. I was cognitive of things going on in my world. I was aware of them, but I didn't understand them because I was a little kid. What do I know? You know, but as I grew up and as I matured and as God allowed me to get education and experience, I started to find out like, oh, I got some issues. I got some things to work on. And so in these streets, I find that that's what it is. Like people are not aware because it's become their teddy bear, you know? And so they just have to be kind of awoken up and be made aware of like there's something going on.
Okay, so teddy bear, because when I think of teddy bear, I'm thinking that we're keeping it close to us. So are you painting the
Mm-hmm.
picture that sometimes we get so comfortable with the pain we've experienced, we normalize it to the point that we just cuddle with it?
Basically, yes. We cuddle with it until we recognize like you need to let it go. So I like to think of the picture of, they have this picture that I've seen online of Jesus. You have the little girl clutching this small little teddy bear that is like beat up, torn up, and this is the one that she's holding. And then Jesus is on his knees and he has this other teddy bear behind his back and he's like, give me that teddy bear. Let me have that teddy bear. And the little girl's clutching like, no, this is my favorite teddy bear. I want, that's essentially the picture is like, I want to hold on to this teddy bear. But the child doesn't realize that behind Jesus's back is a bigger and better teddy bear, but they're so accustomed to this thing that they just clutch it. Because it's become comfortable to them, especially if you have been in traumatic experiences. Like if you, like, you know, with the ACEs, if you had these childhood traumatic experiences, they become, like I said, they become norm. So you're just comfortable with it because you don't know any better. You know what I'm saying? And so it takes a moment for that exchange to take place, but you have to be willing to let go of the broken, raggedy teddy bear in order to get the new, big, beautiful one. So that is kind of like, that's how I paint it, and that's how I understand it.
Okay, so you're going to bring it on in here already. Because when you talk about you have to be willing, you got to be willing to release so that you can be open and free to receive something new. Being
Right.
comfortable is not always in our best interest.
Nope.
Sometimes what
It's
we're
not.
comfortable with and we're refusing to let go of is the very thing that's going to take us out.
That's killing us. Very, very
What
true.
might those dirty, broken little teddy bears look like in a child's life?
Um, it could be like a child who's used to not being considered, or a child who has been neglected, but they're so used to the neglect they've learned to be strong on their own. One
Mm.
of the things for me when I was a kid, my mom loved me to the best of her ability. Like now at 46, I can say that with certainty. My mother loved me to the best of her ability, but she was just not one of those emotional people. So I was the child that needed the words of like the five love languages. I was a words of affirmation child. I needed that, like heavily. I needed that, but my mother never gave that to me, and because I didn't grow up with my father, I never got that from him either. So, growing up as a kid, for me, it was like, I was always compared to somebody else, or I felt like I wasn't important enough. Or even though she was in her own way, she was trying to love me by taking care of me, providing for me. But for me, I couldn't see that. So I think for little kids, it's, your mom is screaming at you to do the right thing, but they're not doing it in a loving way. So therefore, they're hurting you at the same time that they're trying to correct you. So then you get used to that, which ultimately helps you to develop that I need to always explain myself behavior. That what comes in behind that, because mommy's screaming at me, but I'm not like I've done something, but I don't understand why they're trying to correct me, but they're screaming at me. Because there's times in the street when I will see people screaming at their kids, and I'm like, I see that the mother's trying to correct the child, but I'm thinking to myself, well, could she have said that a different way, or could he have said that a different way? Because in the process of correction, because you're trying to guide, you're also inflicting harm, and parents don't realize sometimes that that's what they're doing. So you have to be mindful. So that's one thing. Or like I said, just lashing out on your kid, or dumping on your kid, or treating your kid like they're the same age as you. So therefore, you're talking to them. Yeah, you're talking to them like like you are the same age, and then you're forcing them to mature before their time. Like they don't fully understand. So those are the different things that I saw growing up. That I still see today. Even as I raise my own son, I'm like, I try to be very cognitive of what I'm saying. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes my son has to call me out and correct me. And he was like, Mommy, well, it's not what you say, Mommy, it's how you say it. So those are some of the things that I see, when it comes to the childhood
Ooh, I'm
experiences.
going back. I'm taking notes. I'm going back because this is some good stuff. This is some good stuff. You said sometimes the way you deal with your children, even if you're doing your best, the child learns to be strong and stand on their own.
Mm-hmm. They do.
That doesn't just impact them in childhood. Because if you learn to be strong and stand on your own, what you're really saying to yourself is, I can't depend on anybody else. And as you grow up and you go through life, now you're in relationship.
And that bad habit comes right along with you.
And when you are
You're
in a relationship and you feel like I don't need anybody, I can stand on my own, how does that impact the relationship, Nadia?
For me, like as you're talking, the thought that comes to my mind is that belief that, oh, I gotta be a strong Black woman. That is, excuse my French, BS. Because God created us to work in community. Like if you just look at the relationship of the Godhead, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, three in one, they're all working for one purpose: to save humanity, to care for humanity, to love on humanity. That's what they're doing.
Come
But if
on.
Jesus says, well, I can't really trust you, so therefore I'm gonna go and do it on myself, then how is that working in the relationship? That's not going to work out, right? So that's why I don't believe in that. Oh, I'm a strong Black woman, I could do it all by my. No. You were not meant to do that. You were not. You were meant to operate in community. You were meant to operate in relationship. That's what God showed us from the foundation of our human creation. He showed us. He said it, Genesis 1:27. Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Let them have dominion and rule. And everything he issued after that were what human instructions were supposed to be. We were meant to operate in relationship. We were meant to operate in community. And when we don't, that works against us.
Ooh, one of the listeners says, Jonathan say, come, it's heating up in the room tonight. Jonathan, I think the elephants are running. I think the elephants are running tonight. Oh my gracious, Nadia. It is so true. But when you said the Godhead, all three of them work together. There is no independence. There is no one without the other. But what I heard you say is we have learned this oftentimes in our youth. And people don't understand a lot of the things we deal with in therapy started in childhood. I have another one. You said at the age of 46, I now can look back and understand that my mama raised me to the best of her ability.
Yeah, I can say that now.
Do you know
Literally.
how freeing that is? Because so many people are still at 46, 56, 66 saying, I am not a success because mama didn't, daddy didn't. You said mama did the best she could and daddy didn't show up. But I'm recognizing it. I'm recognizing it and I'm doing something different with my children. When men have that same mentality, I feel that they lead out their partner in decision making. Mm-hmm. And that makes it challenging when you're trying to submit. Come on with it.
It does. It very much does. The submission becomes extremely hard when you can't trust. When you feel like you have to go it alone. Like God is constantly telling humanity, look, include me in your life because I want to be in it. Like I just want to be there. I mean, let's go back to creation. I have to stick with creation because to me that's the best place that you can see that God loved us. God, before he made humanity, made everything humanity needs. I mean, it was so deep that the dew came up from the ground to water the ground. He provided everything. There was nothing we needed because he provided it all. He saw all of our needs provided before we even got here. But then we in our crazy selves followed the theory of some snake. And then look what the punishment was behind that. Okay, so now by the sweat of your brow, you now have to provide for yourself. It didn't have to be that way. It didn't. But because we fell for the trick, all of humanity suffering under the trick of a silly snake that made the woman believe that he was smart because he ate the fruit. Really?
Ooh.
Really?
Ooh, the elephants. Nadia. You said because of the things experienced in childhood, sometimes children began to compare themselves. Mm-hmm. Now, there are so many adults that I have worked with, and I've had to say, don't compare yourself. Don't compare yourself. Do you think it started way back when?
I do. I do think that comparisons start because if the subconscious message that you're receiving is that you're not good enough, if the subconscious message that you're receiving is that you're not beautiful enough, like there's something wrong with you. Like I remember once my mom as a teenager said something to me, like I think it was in like 8th grade or high school. And there was a young lady named Tamra and she was really smart, got scholarships or whatever. And mom was like, well, why can't you just be like Tamra? And I'm looking at her like, why can't I just be me? Like, was there something wrong with me? Like, I'm not in.
You gotta pause. You gotta pause right there. Do you see how the seed was planted so early? And from that one seed, how many times do parents say either why can't you be like or why are you like? Especially when the daddy is absent and the mama is angry. You just like your daddy. That it takes one seed, and from that seed you begin to think subconsciously, I'm not good enough.
Hmm. But Satan was intentional with doing that because he knew. So let's go to the New Testament now. So we have the parable of the sower.
Come on.
And the seed fell on amongst different ground. It had the rocky ground, it had the dry ground, it had the good ground. And so it's like, I love Dr. Nita's a book, In the Garden. I read that book in what, like, I did that Audible book in one day. That thing was so good, I couldn't put it down. And so she talks about this, the different types of soil, and it's the same way. Like, our minds will gravitate to the thing, the seed that is planted. And depending on the type of ground it falls in will determine how the seed grows. And in those instances, the brain of a child is so moldable that the smallest thing will come in there and sit. And what we don't recognize as children growing up is that it's growing in the darkness. But that's what seeds are supposed to do. Because if you think about it, how do we get plants? How do we get flowers? Like, the seed must grow in the ground to break apart and then to grow in the darkness. It's fed until it shows up. And so in the child's, that's exactly what's happening. And so we don't see the seed of that negative talk come and show up until years later down the line when they're adults and they're wondering, like, well, why do I do this? Or why do I feel this way? And they haven't made the connection that what was said to them in their childhood is what's causing the pain today. And that is the problem.
And guess what? Oftentimes, once that seed is planted in childhood, which we call foundational years, now others come along and water that seed.
Correct.
And when we talk about social media and limiting how much time children are spending on social media and watch the music they listen to, it's not just because that's what we're saying. But if that seed has been planted somewhere, social media is watering that seed. Correct. The music they listen to is watering that seed.
Correct.
And the fruit that tree is going to bear, it's oftentimes not going to be the fruit. I mean, you're not going to plant a seed of corn and get back butter beans. So if that seed is negative and it's watered, we're going to get negative behaviors, negative perspectives, negative attitudes. All of that stuff is going to be the fruit that tree is going to bear.
And Satan's going to make sure that your mind picks it up. Even if you're not aware of it, Satan's going to make sure that your subconscious brain picks it up, because what it does, it reinforces the idea. In one of the books I'm reading for my doctoral program, the author said that in the habit mechanic, I think is the name of the book. And he said the ideas of the things that happen, it reinforces them. So you have to find a way to melt the ice, because after a while the idea comes and everything comes and it firms it up into a nice solid break. And then when you want to change it, you have to do new behaviors. You have to let the neuroplasticity take place so that it will form new nervous connections to then break it down. And that new pathway, that new habit, that new behavior will jump over the original pathway to form something new. But you have to become aware. You have to get clarity. You have to understand these things so that the changes that will take place, will take place, because you're changing your habits.
Oh, this is so good. This is so good. Jonathan said, blind negative planting. And you know what the interesting thing is? Just like with our physical bodies, whatever we feed ourselves the most is what's going to show up. If I eat out 7 days a week, but the night of the 7th day, I eat a salad, guess what? Help me, Nurse Nadia. What is my body? Huh?
You already got the poundage. Your body has already processed all the junk. So that one night is like it's like a drop in the bucket. It doesn't, like, yes. I want to say that it doesn't matter, but it's like it doesn't hold as much weight. Like, you have to have that consistency. So that's why a life coach is needed. That's why a therapist is needed. That's why a good, healthy, God-fearing pastor is needed. That's why good friends are needed. Because
wait, go back. Because you didn't just say pastor. Go back.
So I said a good, healthy pastor is needed.
So that tells me
good, and not all pastors are healthy. Some pastors reinforce the negative idea because they have some God complex. So, you have to be mindful of the even your. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know how to tell you. You have to be mindful, even your pastors.
Nadia, welcome to the elephant room. Welcome to the elephant room. Because we're going to talk about it. You said not all pastors are
healthy pastors. They're not.
You need yourself a good
for the name. Some people become pastors because, like, look, let's be realistic. Like, when I went to seminaries, when I started to see things that I didn't know before in the church, because I was just a church girl. Like, I went to church. What I knew is what I knew. But as I've come to watch some of these pastors and see some of the crazy things happen in the church, I'm just like, this man broken. Ooh, this man got pride. Ooh, this man got a sexual issue. Like, you can, if you pay really close attention, the discerning of the spirit will let you know, like, ooh, there's a problem with this pastor. You know what I'm saying? And so it's in the church. They're human. You know, they're held to a higher standard according to scriptures. Pastors, priests, as the Bible put it, were held to a higher standard, but they're also human. So I've seen or know of pastors who struggled with sexual issues. I've seen and known of pastors or heard of pastors who interfered with a young lady, and down the line, like, she finally tells a story, then she's the one that's ostracized. Like, so I know, and we can see it. We see it in the Roman Catholic Church. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like none of these pastors don't do nothing, because the truth is they do.
Okay. Ooh, Nadia. Okay, there is something you said in the conversation that you and I had privately that I want to ask you about publicly. And since we already done opened the door and the elephants are running, we might as well get on in it. You said to me, people of faith, when we talk about brokenness, because that's what we're talking about tonight, breaking the cycle of brokenness. You said people of faith oftentimes want to sweep things under the rug. Tell me, what do you mean by that?
We don't want to face it. That's the reality of it. We just don't want to face it. We want to pretend it didn't happen. It's like, what example? Because me and my best friend was talking about that the other day. She was like, "You ain't like to deal with nothing," and it's the truth. There was my childhood sweetheart that I had. I was so in love with him, and it was just like, there are things that I wouldn't let him know. Like, I would hide it. Like, when we would communicate, I would literally hide so, because I wanted him to continue to see me as what I presented, the mask that I presented, the person, the artificial person that I presented. I wanted them to continue to see that person. I wasn't willing to trust them enough to be vulnerable enough to say, well, this makes me feel this way. This makes me feel that way. I was not mature enough a couple of years ago to say, hey, this is how I feel about this. Or when you do this, I feel this way. So I would just sweep it under the rug, stamp. Like, you know, and for me, what I would do with him is I would pull away because I felt like my emotions were too strong for him and I didn't want to scare him. So I would pull back so that I can push back down the emotions so that I can show up as, okay, I'm still here for you, sweetie. What do you need? And so I think the same thing happens in the church. There is a hurt that has happened. And because we don't want to face it for whatever reason, whether it's because they don't want to be ostracized if this truth came out, or if they just don't want to deal with it and pretend it didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? We will stamp down the rug and stamp it down as smooth as we can, or just pretend it's not there. And churches do that over and over and over again. And that's how come you can have a pastor who's a molester in a church. And instead of the church truly dealing with it, they'll move him from church to church to church, because what they will do is stop, quiet the family, however they're going to quiet the family, or the family would leave because of the pain that it's caused. And then other people, they will just stamp, and then they will just move them to the next church for it to happen all over again. And then next thing you know, you have a sea of people that's hurt at different churches, and it's just not dealt with. And God never called for it to be like that. But because we don't want the quote unquote, the church don't want the quote unquote backlash, that's how we continue to conceal. That's why I think that's why we ended up with the Me Too movement. Me personally, that's why I think we end up with the Me Too movement.
Oh, Nadia, there's so much I want to unpack, Nadia. You said it perfectly. You said when you were in that relationship as a girl, you did not want to blemish who you showed up as. One of the listeners said you sent your representative to him.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't want to blemish that. You didn't want to blemish, so you wore a mask. And that's also what I think you're describing in some churches. When we don't deal with our truth and we keep allowing it, or we be quiet, our quietness is actually condoning that behavior.
It is. It is. It does. I mean, I will never deny it. It does. And the thing about it is, like, I didn't tell him, not only because I didn't want him to, I wanted the representative to show, is like, I was yearning for him to want me. And so I was willing to hide parts of me for him to want me. And that, then does he really love me? Can he really love me if he don't really know me? Like, and that's what happens in relationships. Like, we send a representative, like I would dare say for my ex-husband, he sent a representative, and I was married to him, a representative for like 3 years before my mind was like, wait a minute, something's not right. One of my best friends in adulthood, we went out after I had my second child, and I was saying, oh, when I get married again, I'm gonna do this. Oh, when I get married again, I'm gonna go do that. And she was like, and she's a therapist. She was like, Nadia, do you hear yourself? I said, what you say? What you talking about? She's like, you keep on saying when you get married again, you're gonna do this when you get married. I was like, no, I didn't say that. The next time I said it, my ears perked up, and I said, what? When I say I went home for a whole week and processed that conversation, I went a whole week and processed that conversation because I couldn't believe that my subconscious mind was aware of what was going on, but my conscious mind wasn't, until she pointed out, like, do you see what you say?
Yes. Oh, this is so good. The representative. That's a whole nother podcast. The representative. Jonathan says a mask can only be worn for so long. At some point, you got to take that mask off.
You got to take the mask off. That person's going to be blind.
At some point.
Some of us choose to stay blind.
And you said it, how the church does it sometimes is move that pastor from church to church. And so he doesn't have to take the mask off because he's now starting over with a new church or new congregation.
Because he's accepted.
Yes. Oh,
as broken as he is, he's accepted broken.
I need to know in the chat box, what are y'all thinking out there? Talk to us. Let me know what's going on with you. This is some good stuff. You told me that when you realized you were living in a place of brokenness, you decided that you needed to change, not only for you, but for your babies.
Very true.
So many parents, they have children, and they know they're in a broken place, but they don't have the strength. They have not found the strength. They have not made the decision for whatever reason to heal. What kind of advice or nuggets of wisdom would you say helped you to say, I got to do this not only for me, but for my babies?
Because I saw the pain that I inflicted in one incident. I saw the pain that I inflicted in one incident that helped me see, like, oh, I need to do better. And so sometimes it takes that one incident to realize it. I think that prayer and really reading the Bible is another, because one thing about me and God will be like, come here, child. We need to have a conversation. And he'll put me aside and be like, let's go. And I'm like, what you want to, like, in my mind, because this is how I think about it when I talk to God. I'm like, what do you want to talk about now? Like, I think, did you give me enough information? He be like, sweetie, do you see this Bible story here? Do you want to repeat this? Or even death. I think one of the biggest lessons for me was death. My brother, when he passed away, stuff happened. And I watched the repercussions of everything that happened around his death. And it was really interesting for me to watch, because I saw people just like disappear because they couldn't handle. And I'm trying to be sensitive with it because I know somebody gonna see this from my family. And so the way that they tried to avoid the whole thing around his death, I saw the brokenness that it was causing, and I'm like, this can't be repeated. This can't be done. I like it just can't. We got to stop, you know? And so I would say to parents, be more aware. Try your best to be more aware of what's going on around you and what you're doing and how your child is feeling. If you're blessed, to me, I mean, every parent is blessed, but if you're blessed to have if you're raising your children to be like open-minded and to be able upfront and talk to you, that's also helpful. If you teach them that from early, to speak up for themselves, instead of like, you know how they say, like, when we were little, somebody would want to come and give you a hug and you just feel kind of eerie about it, but your parent like, go hug that person. No, don't force that on your child. Like, listen to that, pay attention to those things, because that's a sign that child is sensing something in that person. Don't continue pushing the person that way, because you don't know what that child is picking up. You have to let that child learn to trust their intuition. You know what I'm saying? So for parents, I would say, you know, let that be something as well. But I just recognized that I didn't want it to continue, because when I look at, like, for example, in the Bible, Jacob and his 12 sons, he had 12 sons. Joseph was his favorite. And because Joseph was his favorite, the other 10 hated him enough to try to kill him. You know what I'm saying? And then, but if you watch the trend with Jacob's children, that behavior passed all the way down to David, because David was the shepherd that was always in the field. And when Samuel went to come and anoint, what did his father do? His father brought everybody else but David.
And he said, none of these. And I
was like, that's my son. So then he was like, Samuel's like, was there not anybody else? He was like, well, there's my son David, and he's in the field. So that showed you how much his father thought about him. You know what I'm saying? I mean, even Samuel, when he first saw David's older brother, Samuel like, oh, he must be him because he's tall, he's this, he's that, he's like Saul. And God was like, no, it's not him. Mm-mm. And so you have to be cognizant of that, because if you're not careful, what the Bible has declared will happen. The sins of the father will pass on to the third and fourth generation. So if you don't stop it, if you are not strong enough to be what I call the generational curse breaker in your family, because every family, I tell my mother this all the time, every family has a generational curse breaker. Everyone. That's the person who can see the problems before they happen. They can sense it in the spiritual realm, and they can speak to it because they can sense it, but they just haven't been trained yet. And so the person who's the generational curse breaker, once God begins to fine tune their spirit and their ability to hear and to see, oh, that person is deadly for the family, because they're the ones who can break the curse. They're the one who can stand in the gap to help break the curse. But that person has to be able to trust that as well. So that is another aspect.
Since we're going to talk about curse breaking, but the family has to also be open. Correct. To allow that person to operate in that gift.
And a lot of times they don't want you to, because you end up being the black sheep indirectly, because they're looking at you like, oh, you think you better than people. And it's not that you think that you better. You just can see the stuff that their family members can't see.
Yes. Oh, this is so good. You talked about when family members are asking to hug a kid, and we in our generation was taught you go and you hug Uncle Joe, whoever, and the kid would do it not wanting to, and you said allow that child to learn to listen to their intuition. Some of the things we smother in children when they're younger are the very things they need, and we want them to use in their future. They should have the ability to choose when things are uncomfortable. They should have the opportunity to say, this doesn't feel good. I can't tell you how many victims of sexual abuse I have worked with that have said to parents, I don't want to go to that house. And the parent said, you're going. So children being able to choose really is a big deal. All right, we have a comment. Someone had to remind Jesse that David was his son. He was out there in the field working hard. A lot of family members don't think they have a problem. They think you have a problem.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's the generational person. It's usually that person who can literally isolate the problem. Like if you can go do a genogram of your family and you can see the trend, like you can isolate the trend, then it's likely that you're the generational curse breaker in your family. Because only that person, like that person's the only one to see it and actually name it. Because the rest of the family will be blind to it, completely blind to it.
This leads to something else you shared with me. You said, what we don't confront, we continue.
Yep. And we pass it down.
Ooh, what we don't confront, we continue.
Yep, we do.
So that aligns with that secret. What stays in this house, what is done in this house stays in this house.
And that is a horrible statement. I hate that statement.
Oh, I'm gonna let you unpack it.
Like my mama used to say, what your right hand know, don't let your left hand know. Damn it, the right hand needs to know what the left hand knows. That's the only way you can protect it. You know, because when I was a kid, I had a cousin that was married to this man. And when I was like, my mother used to, like, you know, back in the days, they had the old cars where the rows were like one row. There wasn't dividers or whatever. So like he used to drop us to church and stuff. And like, I would be the one stuck sitting beside him. I would like try to get everybody else. It would be me. And there were times when I was a kid where he would have his hands between my legs while he's driving and nobody was aware. And it got to the point that like my mother would say, oh, well, he's going to take, I was like, do I have to? Can I not? But I would ask these questions, but she wasn't able to pick up the cues because I didn't want to be the one to blast the person. You know what I'm saying? So for me, when I was a teenager, there were many years that I held on to that. I did not tell my cousin who he was married to what happened until I was 27. That thing happened when I was 12. Wow. I couldn't say because I'm like, in my mind as a kid, I was already analyzing, well, if I say this run the risk of break up in the marriage. Oh, they have 6 children. What will she do? Wow. And like, I held on to that weight for 15 years. And when I finally told her, she was like, Nadia, why didn't you say something? I was like, because I didn't want the burden of being the one to break up your marriage. I mean, by then their marriage was already mashed up, but it's like, I finally told her, and it took a lot of courage for me to do that. And that's why I do not believe in pushing your child to go hug somebody, because you never know how that person's perceiving your child. For when I was 12, I didn't look 12 when I was 12. I looked like I was like solid 16, 17 years old, but I was 12. And so I wasn't protected and safeguarded from my molester. You know what I'm saying? And even as when I became an adult and told my mother, like, I'm not mad at her now, but she was like, well, that's your fault because you ain't tell me about it. And I'm just like, you ain't get your daughter's cues. Like, did you really miss that? Because now I am like hyper vigilant when it comes to my own children. Like, so if they don't want to do something, I ain't forcing them. If they don't feel it in their spirit to do, I'm not doing it, because I'm not going to put my children in a position like that to deal with the pain later, because it took me years to literally deal with that, enough to be able to be strong enough to say to my own cousin, to then find out that he was doing that with a whole bunch of different people in the whole family. And that's that secrets again. That's that secret. Let me stamp it on the carpet and let me hide it. And that's why I do not like secrets. Satan loves secrets. He wants to make you feel like you're the only one, that you alone, and nobody else is going to understand. He wants you to feel like that. But I'm saying to you, speak up, say your truth. Like, find a nice way to say it if you must, but still speak it, because that's the thing that's going to help you heal. That's going to help you grow. Like, that's it. That will help you heal and help you grow. That's what I got to say about that.
And so thank you for sharing that. You are not alone. It happens so often, and children, for whatever reason, a lot of the times don't feel safe enough to say, I'm being hurt. Oftentimes they're trying to shelter and say, well, I don't want to be the one to do this. I don't want to be the one. Well, everybody loves him. Oh, he's a deacon in the church, or whatever the reason is. We have to create avenues for children to be able to talk to us about anything. The other thing, when we make talking about private parts, talking about sex, talking about things that are human and natural, when we make it, ooh, let's talk about the birds and the bees, it creates a space where children don't feel comfortable to come up and say, this happened. Also, when we miseducate children, we don't want children to think, oh, a person crossed a boundary only when they took you to a bedroom and took off your clothes. Sometimes people are doing things in the church house, in the schoolhouse, that are inappropriate, and children are carrying it. I have been in the mental health field for 27 years. In 18 of those years, I worked with children. And let me tell you something. Children are being hurt. And that hurt is being carried through adulthood. That pain is being carried through adulthood. Sometimes our men and women are not quiet because they have nothing to say. Sometimes they're quiet because they're still hurting from stuff they've been carrying. A lot of people that are on drugs will tell you, I'm trying to numb the pain. What pain? Childhood hurt. We have got to break the cycle of brokenness. It is not normal for us to walk around as Christians and feel like we can't heal. We can't break this cycle. We can break the cycle, Nadia.
We can. I agree.
But we have to do our part. And the first step is owning that something is wrong. Something is wrong.
Correct.
I don't know where the time went, Nadia, but I want you to give us some tips that you know have worked when it comes to breaking the cycle. Because I know breaking the cycle doesn't mean that life is perfect after that, because we're still human. But after you break that cycle, life can be a lot better. What are some things you know work?
Well, one thing I would say definitely is prayer and willing to be honest with God. I think that sometimes we are subconsciously taught not to trust God, like not to really be honest with him. Like we think that he doesn't care. Like one of my girlfriends, she was like, sometimes I go in the closet and be like, Jesus, what should I wear today? You know, we have to learn to be on, like have that relationship with God so that he can help us, because God doesn't want us to be broken. He wants us to heal. So that I will start with that. Definitely prayer and a relationship with God to help heal the brokenness. The next thing I would definitely say is learn to sit with yourself. To sit quietly with yourself. And I won't say, I'm not of the mindset to say empty your mind, because I don't think you should ever do that, because when you empty your mind, something can enter in it and you're not even aware that something entered in. So I would never say that, but I would say definitely learn to quiet your mind so you can hear God speak, would be another step that I would tell somebody. The next thing I would say is, in addition to that, is to be centered yourself. The next thing I would say that will work is journaling. Journaling is super duper important to help break the cycle. The other thing that I would note that Jesus is even telling me sometimes is to write down the hurt, write it out. Whether it's writing a letter to that person that you can choose, you can give it to them or you can not. It's one of the two, but you just need to get it out of your system. I remember once I did a technique where I pretend my mother was sitting on a chair in a room, and I literally just stood there and talked to the chair, just pretending she was there. And I bawled my eyes out. Like that night, I never cried. Like I cried like I cried that night. You know what I'm saying? Because like you hurt me. Like you have to find a way to release, because you cannot hold it. Because if you, it's like the person who has a task to do, right? Or no, I don't want to put it that way. This is the way a friend Suze put it one day. She said, we as humans have a tendency to say that we have to solve our own problems, when in actuality, we need to learn to be like toddlers. So instead of feeling like, oh, I got to fix my own problem, my head is down, I'm trying to figure out how to fix my problem, we have to learn to be like, Daddy, help me instead. And
That's
so she taught me that several years ago. And I never forgot that concept, because even now in this season, that is what I'm doing. I'm like, Daddy, like, God, I'm frustrated. God, I'm flustered. Like, God, and I'll ask those real questions. I'm like, God, what are you doing? I don't understand what you're doing with my life. You're frustrating me in this process. But God wants that. God wants that honesty with him. Like the Bible says, come now, let us reason, so that your sin may be though your sin may be as scarlet, it shall be white as snow. He wants you to bring your problems and struggles to him. So I will definitely say to do that as well. Definitely going outside. Like sometimes I used to, when I was first in college, I used to go for walks and pretend God was walking with me and have conversations with him as I did that. And because that becomes soothing, or go to, like, my best friend Felicia, she likes to go to the beach sometime at sunrise and sit there and just have peaceful moments. These are different tools and steps that
yeah.
I have used, or even writing names on a board and saying, like, look at them all and then pray to God about each one and say, God, I forgive them, or God, I release. Or if there is a lie in my mind that needs to be adjusted, something that God has pointed out to me is like, well, what does the Bible say about this lie that you believe? Because the truth is there. So find the truth to the lie. So that is another like nugget that I would share. If you have a trusted friend that is objective, ask God to, actually, let me not even say that. Let me change it this way. Ask God to send you a destiny helper, so that you can have that person to talk with, that knows that God knows them. Like, just like God said to Satan, oh, have you considered my servant Job? Just like he said that to them. Like, let God put on your mind or introduce you to somebody who would be like a destiny helper for you, because a destiny helper has a purpose. It's in their name. They're a destiny helper. They're to get you to your destiny. So ask God to send you those destiny helpers to kind of help you navigate through the different crevices or the different situations or the different points of healing, because not everybody is for every season. You know what I'm saying? So there are sometimes you need a person to show up for this particular season to deal with this, and maybe that's their strength, or maybe that's their pain point, but it's your strength, and then you're helping them heal. You heal yourself, because sometimes God like to do that to you, which is why He had me adjust my podcast to like a Bible study podcast, because He was like, Nadia, this podcast that you have fought me on since 2017, I need you to do it now. You need to do it now, And so now that He's had me adjusted to this Bible study, He was like, all those questions you have in your mind, He's like, you're not the only one, sweetie. This is why I want you to do it. Because as you ask those questions and you look for the answers and you share it, your healing is coming in the process. And so I don't sit here as a coach saying that I'm perfect and I have it all together. No, I'm human just like everybody else. I'm just a little bit ahead of somebody. And so for those who need some help, I'll be here to help you, because I'm just a little bit ahead of you. And if you want a partner, then hey, I'll grab your hand and I'll walk with you and I'll cheer you on and be like, you got this, God got you. And I'll remind you who you are when you forget, because we all have those moments where we forget who we are. And God is just trying to say, no, I know who I made you to be. I want to see you become that. And He's going to do everything possible to get you there. So those are my different tools that I would say, take all of those and use it.
Those are all real good. And I'm glad you candidly shared your relationship with us. A lot of the times when we think of someone in ministry, or we think of a life coach, or we think of someone who has multiple degrees, we think of someone who we can't relate to. And you made everything so relatable. So you gave us bite sizes tonight, but you made it practical. A lot of the times when people think of prayer, if that's not a practice that they have, they think that you have to get on your knees and you have to have fancy words. And so when you talk about, I would go take a walk and act like God was walking next to me and have a conversation with Him. And myself, my relationship with God is very similar. We talk, and I use the language that I'm using with you. We talk in real time. And the more I learn to do that, the more I learn to hear the voice of the Holy Spirit. And so I definitely agree with you that all those things are great. The building a relationship with God. I always say to people, and I have to say this because you mentioned it. If you're trying to date someone and you never carve out time to see them, to talk to them, to learn about them, your relationship is not going to go very far. It's the same
Mhm.
with God. If you don't carve out time to spend with Him, and it doesn't have to be fancy. Nadia just told you, sit quietly and listen. You don't have to read the Bible from the front to the back, but start somewhere. That's how you're going to begin to deal with your brokenness. All right. Tell the people how they can contact you, Nadia. Tell the
Oh
people.
goodness. Okay, so you can reach out to me on Instagram, and it's Embrace It Your Beautiful Coaching. If you want to reach out to me privately on Instagram, is Leah and Joseph. What else? What are some other methods I have? Man, there's so many I can't even remember myself. You can hit me up on Facebook as Leah and Joseph on Facebook. I have a LinkedIn profile that you can, if you want to schedule a clarity call with me, you can go to there, and that's on my Embracing Your Beautiful Coaching on
You're
Insta. That's
moving
my
too
main.
fast. Embracing your
Embrace it.
beautiful.
Embrace it. You're beautiful. So
Okay.
it's an announcement, like embrace it. You're beautiful. So
Yes.
that's what coaching is.
And I will definitely have her links under the podcast.
Sorry
What
guys, that's the New York me. I talk too fast sometimes.
Nadia, it has been a plum pleasing pleasure. In the chat box, y'all got to give Nadia some love. Y'all got to give us some love. Give us some love. I see some people saying thank you. That's my sister. That's my biological sister right there. Sylvia, she said she loved it. She actually took my space as the baby, Nadia, but I have forgiven her for that. Embrace it. You're beautiful. Yes, yes. Thank you, Tatiana, for joining us. Shalonda, thank you. Nadia, you are amazing. You made the elephants run today. And that's what we're doing. We're making the elephants run because we are addressing the elephants in the room. Y'all, I am Lynda Carmouche. Until next time, take time to take care of you.